Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot state this clearly enough. This is October 2025. This is the month that we've been talking about in this YouTube channel since 2022 during the end of the bear market when I was advocating for buys at around the 17.5k breakout. This has been a long-awaited month. And as a matter of fact, it's not only important for a cyclical reason, it's also important because, well, you've heard about Red September. Have you heard about Green October? And in fact, Green October, also known as Uptober, is even more influential than the Red September trend. We'll discuss both of these things today. October from a cyclical perspective and also October from a monthly returns-based perspective, how it relates to the current charts and what we need to watch on both a price chart level with lines, what we need to watch on both a cyclical level and also on a very important macro level, right? Looking at the power law chart, looking at this logarithmic regression channel. 80% of you, which is a 4 in 5 ratio, right? Very large percentage of my audience thinks that October will be bullish. I think at this point, that's the correct opinion to hold. I don't see any evidence at this point that has actually been validated other than a few bearish theories to counteract that. So 80% of you think it's going to be bullish. Hopefully it is. We'll see. We need to analyze it today. Before we do so, go ahead and check out the Bitunix Exchange. A lot of problems with exchanges nowadays, a lot of hacks, a lot of restrictions based on regulation, right? Where you can be, where you can't be living. Australia, USA, UK, they're all subject to a lot of location-based restrictions. Now, the Bitunix Exchange kind of reminds me of an exchange back in 2021 before all of this nonsense. It's never been hacked before. It's globally accessible. You don't need a VPN. You don't need any of that. You can just sign up and use it like the old days with no risk to security, or at least historically speaking, no risk to security. It's been on the market since 2021, actually, so 4.5 years on the market, clean track record. Go ahead and sign up down below if you're interested with that referral link, and that referral link there will get you a 15% lifetime trading fee discount exclusively with that link. So use that link down below to sign up. You'll be helping out the channel and you'll be helping out yourself by getting on a great exchange at an even lower cost with that link. So cheers guys, appreciate it. Let's get into the content. I want to start out with the Uptober trend. Now, this is the monthly returns chart on Bitcoin. Basically, it lists out every single month that Bitcoin has seen from the start of the month to the end of the month, and returns from the starting price of the month to the ending price of the month. And of course, Red September is you've probably heard of it before. I'd be surprised if you haven't. I even made a YouTube video on it last year. I made a YouTube on it, in fact, every single year since 2021 at this point. It's a very common trend, a very common term that's thrown around. I'm not a massive believer in Red September. And of course, my lack of belief in Red September turned out to be validated. We saw a Green September. We saw a 5% return in the month of September. Simply put, I don't think it's as strong as a trend as people thought it once was. I think people started to think it was a strong trend because we saw 6 consecutive Red Septembers in a row. And I think also they thought it was a strong trend because we see in traditional markets Red September being a bit more prevalent. In crypto, however, it's been proven, obviously, that we've had 5 Green Septembers and only 8 Red Septembers. So 5 versus 8 doesn't really form a very strong trend, right? Certainly not a trend strong enough to create a whole term about. And in fact, the whole Red September trend kind of falls apart when you look into the average return in the month of September. We usually see a negative 3% return on average in the month of September. That's nothing to write home about, right? So there's no real confirmation at all that we should be expecting crashes in September. And that's why every year, for the past 3 or 4 years consecutively, I've come out and said Red September is a hoax, don't trust it. And that's been proven correct in the last 3 consecutive years when they've been green. I don't hold the same dismissive attitude towards October, though. I think that October has a much clearer trend than September. Okay, not only have there been more Green Octobers than there were Red Septembers, right? There's only been 2 red Octobers in the entire price history of Bitcoin, and both of them have been in peak bear markets, right, before the bear market bottom. So 2014 and 2018 were peak bear market territories. One of those red Octobers was only a negative 3%. The average return in October is a full 20% return, which is the second highest return month after November. So actually, I think probably a better way to put this phrase would be a Green October-November trend rather than just a Green October trend. But for the sake of the term, Uptober is certainly a real thing in the way that Red September is not, at least in crypto. We have actually seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consecutive Green Octobers, and we haven't had a Red October since 2018, and again, that October was only a 3% Red October. It was barely red, And if we actually zoom in on the month of October in 2018, we can see that it was hardly red. It was mostly just a month of consolidation. So in reality, the last proper red October that we saw was way back in 2014, over a decade ago. Now, this isn't to say that, we should be buying simply because Octobers are generally green. Of course not. We should be trusting charts. And if we get into the charts, we can see quite clearly what we've seen for the last, few weeks on Bitcoin, which is there is a trend on the Bitcoin chart in regards to the bull market support band that says every September, we generally retest the bull market support band on a neckline of support before going to all-time highs. That occurred right here on this cycle. It occurred in 2021. Neckline, retest, all-time high. And it occurred in 2017. So in all three of the biggest bull markets we've seen in cryptocurrency, in all three of the bull markets in which the bull market support band has been a used indicator, a regular indicator, we have seen that trend where we retested in September, we bounce off of it, and we go to all-time highs. And that pretty clearly tells us that as long as we're above the bull market support band on a weekly chart, we are within that trend. We are within what has happened normally on a cyclical basis. So we are within the status quo. And the status quo says that, as I just said, as long as we're above bull market support band, everything seems okay. Furthermore, the status quo says that the 4-year cycle, which is part of the status quo, which really just is the definition of the status quo on Bitcoin, it's been the kind of arbiter of every single bull market and bear market that we have seen, especially in length, says that we should be topping out in the 4-year cycle around October, maybe into November. And so that gives October a secondary level of importance. It's more important than just, it's generally green, October. It's also important from a cyclical perspective, because from a cyclical perspective, right now, we seem to be following the cycle. We seem to be holding on to this cyclical trend with the bull market support band. Now, obviously, if we break down from that, that changes the game. We can adapt, we can adjust, but right now, everything seems okay. And given the fact that everything seems okay, we have to hold credence. We have to give the 4-year cycle its due and treat it as if it is occurring, at least to some extent, right? At least watch it. And the 4-year cycle says that October is important because October, or maybe early November, is when we should be seeing that 4-year cycle top if it is going to be playing out. Now, let's be clear. Just, I think I've jumbled up the wording a little bit there. It might be a little bit confusing. I'm not claiming that the 4-year cycle will play out, certainly. I don't know that for sure. No one does, right? It could break. We could have already seen the top. We could top out in 2026. We could extend the cycle. All these things can happen. I'm saying that at this point, there's no actual concrete evidence that we have deviated fully from the cycle. And therefore, until that evidence comes in, we have to treat the cycle as if it's playing out, right? Simply put, that's logic, that's mathematics, right? Trend is your friend until it ends. It's one of the core principles of following trends in mathematics and investing, whatever it may be. Until we see actual evidence that the trend has ended, which would come by a weekly candle close below the bull market support band, or which would come by Bitcoin just continuing to run into 2026, we have to at least pay attention to the cycle. And again, comes back to my original point. October is important from a cyclical perspective as well, because it's when the cycle should probably be ending around October, maybe early November. So that kind of raises the question. It's like, well, if the cycle says we are ending soon, if the cycle says we're running out of time, and if we are still holding on to the trends that make us think that cycle is valid, that means we should be pumping soon, right? And the answer is, yeah, we probably should. If we are going to be doing a regular cycle, we should be pumping very shortly. We're pretty much out of time. We need to start as soon as possible. And then the question is, well, where does that pump go to? Well, first of all, just because I'm sitting here with a bullish inclination, it doesn't mean I'm suggesting that we should be buying massively right now. I actually don't think that at all. I think that Bitcoin needs to get back above this line right here in yellow before we're in a bullish medium-term environment. I think the macro trend is currently intact, but in terms of medium-term buys, this yellow line that goes back to 2017 is clearly offering resistance. It's rejected Bitcoin on 2 separate occasions, and we've tried to get over it, and it's pinning Bitcoin against the bull market support band. So I think we're in a high-risk medium-term position. If we get back above 118,000, I think that actually triggers a macro move. And that macro move, in my view, will find its resistance at this white line, which comes from the same place, but goes across the actual high from 2021, which would be at around 130,000 in late October. We would find resistance at the power law chart, which again will be at 130,000-ish, 135,000 in late October. And we'd find resistance at this logarithmic regression channel based on angles, which would be again at 135,000 in late October. So my overarching conclusion is this: October is a very important month. October is also a very green month. Bitcoin seems to be following the macro trends for now. And if we get above $118,000, we will trigger the next macro upside move, which would take us to the $130,000 region. From there, we will see if the $130,000 region holds. If it does, that is the top. If we break it, that would probably mark a cyclical extension. So this is a very, very, very important month, and I don't expect it. Look, if anything, I can say this. This will not be a month of consolidation, right? Whether we crash here and break the cycle or deviate from it, or whether we pump up here and see a cyclical top or even go into 2026, we're going to be moving either way. October is a month of movement, and I expect nothing less. Thank you guys for watching. I'll keep you updated specifically on the short-term price action, which we didn't get around to today in upcoming videos. Go ahead and check out the Bitunix Exchange for a 15% trading fee discount attached to your account for life, just with my link down below. This is an exchange that's never been hacked before. It's an exchange that's global. You can sign up from anywhere in the world and use it non-KYC. Those two factors alone make it an absolute standout, but there's many more things to add to that. Use that link down below to sign up if you're interested. Appreciate it. Helps out the channel, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.